Hi, my name is Ken. I'm back again, this time to talk about the reliability of our New Testament. Did you know that our New Testament is backed by 5,686 manuscripts? Some of the earliest manuscripts are dated only 250 to 350 years after the originals. One fragment is dated at 125 AD and covers a small portion of the book of John. That's only 29 years after the writings were complete. The New Testament is a reliable historical book of antiquity. Now, when we look at comparisons of other books of antiquity, we can see that there are so many examples that show that the Bible is superior. For example, Caesar's Gallic War, dated 50 through 60 AD. There are 9 to 10 good manuscripts in possession, but there's a gap between the originals and the copies that we have of 900 years. What's the accuracy? Unknown. Probably not very good. Another writing by Plato, dated 427 to somewhere around 347 BC, we have 7 manuscripts in possession. The earliest of these manuscripts is dated 900 AD. That means there's a gap of 1,200 years. Accuracy? Again, this is in question. Another writing to be considered is Herodotus, dated 480 to somewhere around 425 BC. We have 8 manuscripts in possession. The earliest of these is dated 900 AD. That means there is a gap of 1,300 years. Again, when it comes to accuracy, we do not know. Another writing is Livy, dated 59 through 17 AD. We have 20 manuscripts in possession. The earliest is unknown, the gap's unknown, so the accuracy is also unknown. And yet, this teaching of Roman history is used in many of our universities today. Still, one more writing, called Homer's Iliad, is dated 900 BC. We have 643 manuscripts in existence for this writing, the earliest being dated 400 BC. This is still a gap of 500 years, and the accuracy is estimated to be at 95%. But lastly, here we have the New Testament, dated between 50 and 100 AD. Most scholars agree that the New Testament was completed in 100 AD. There are 5,686 Greek manuscripts. The earliest, as I said before, dated 125 AD, which was a fragment of John. And then, of course, we have 2nd and 3rd century manuscripts as well, the latest being 1000 AD. But the accuracy or the textual purity of the copies is 99.5%. That's astounding. The Bible passes the bibliographical test, or test concerning the writing of a book of antiquity. So when it comes to the bibliographical test, or a test concerning the reliability of a writing of antiquity, an honestly intellectual person would have to dismiss all ancient writings of Greece and Rome before dismissing the Bible. Concerning manuscript evidence, F. Bruce, the late leading scholar concerning manuscripts, wrote this. He said, "No classical author would listen to an argument that the authenticity of Herodotus or Thucydides is in doubt because the earliest manuscripts of their works are over 1,300 years later than the originals. But how different is the situation of the New Testament in this respect?" Concerning the gap between manuscripts, the late Sir Frederick G. Kenyon, the former director and primary librarian of the British Museum, wrote this. He wrote, "The interval, then, between the dates of original composition and the earliest extant evidence becomes so small as to be, in fact, negligible." Wow, that is incredible. The fact is, there's not much of a gap between the original writings and the manuscripts we now have in hand. As can be seen by the manuscript evidence, the Bible is a historical, reliable book of antiquity. In addition to it being backed up by 5,686 Greek manuscripts, there are additional 19,000 copies of the Syriac, Latin, Coptic, and Aramaic manuscripts, for a total of, get this, 24,686 manuscripts. Most biblical scholars agree that all the New Testament books were written before the end of the 1st century. If Jesus was crucified in 30 AD, this would mean that the New Testament was completed within 70 years of his death. If the writings were an attempted hoax, the hostile Jews of that day, the unbelieving Gentiles of that day, would have objected very, very strongly, and they would have quickly moved to debunk it. The writers also would have certainly been persecuted and some killed. Some will die for a lie. But as Josh McDowell says, I don't know of anyone who would die for what they know to be a lie. Now, the oldest manuscripts for the New Testament are as follows. We have the John Rylands fragment. The original date of that is 96 AD. The manuscript date is 125 AD. That's a gap of only 29 years. It contains John 18, 31 through 33, and 37 through 38, and it's located at the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England. Another ancient manuscript is called the Bodmer Papyrus. Its original date is between the 50s and the 70s AD. The manuscript date is 200 AD. This is a gap of only 150 years. It contains portions of Romans 5, Romans 8, Romans 10, and Romans 16, so on and so forth. Hebrews, Corinthians, Ephesians, Galatians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, and its location is the Chester Beatty Museum. Still another ancient manuscript is called the Bodmer Papyrus. Its original date is 70 AD. The manuscript date is 200 AD. That's a gap of only 130 years. It contains John chapter 1 through chapter 6, various verses, chapter 14, and that's located in Cologne, Geneva. There are other manuscripts as well. As we can see, the New Testament is a reliable historical book of antiquity. To take the Bible out of the mix, you would have to remove all historical books of either the Greek Empire or the Roman Empire. That would only be fair. Yet all those other books I mentioned are taught in our universities today. The Bible is superior when it comes to manuscript evidence, and superior when it comes to the gap between the originals and what we have in hand today. What can I say? The Bible is a reliable historical book of antiquity. That's it. In any case, I'm glad you watched my video today, and I hope that you will watch more videos in the future. Thanks for watching. God bless you.